So another way to kind of look at this is through the lens of the Indian tradition of the chakras. Now, Ken actually does argue, in fact, that there might be a overlay of the chakras where, there's this subtle, causal, and gross body chakras. That is to say, that it kind of repeats potentially over and over again. And if this is the case, then this might reflect the kind of fractal dynamics that I'm speaking of here. Really quickly, the first chakra at the base of the spine, again, this would be in gross, subtle, causal, maybe non-dual space. Second chakra being your stomach, more vital, it makes sense. It's kind of the vital center of our body where we digest things to some important degree. Third chakra kind of being associated with power, one's ego, the central nexus of strength in some important plays, the core of our body, those sorts of things. Fourth chakra sort of being our heart, where we connect with people. There's so many associations in language with our heart being, our social center in some important ways. Fifth chakra, sort of our throat, where we speak into existence. I noted that notion of sagely wisdom. That's where the speaking, the objectification can kind of come, where we use language to make object of things around us. So this is a little complicated, but, our brain then being sort of the sixth center, where the traditional third eye sits, that's where our visioning, our integration really takes place in some important ways. Exponential seems very important to address. The Emperor of China really liked the game of chess, and he offered the inventor a prize for having created it. This individual went to see the emperor, and what he asked for a prize was essentially give him 1 grain of rice for the first square on the chessboard, 2 for the second, 4 for the third, and 8 for the fourth, and so forth, till the 64 square. The emperor thought this was sort of a modest request. It didn't seem that much, especially if you think linearly, But in reality, by the 32nd square, there's a Mount Everest of rice, and by the 34th square, or the 33rd square, there's 2 Mount Everests of rice. Now, this isn't very intuitive from a linear perspective. We think linearly when we typically go about day-to-day life. We see an animal in this savanna, and we would think, if we go this direction, we'll cut them off in the pass in 2 kilometers. It's a very linear way of thinking. But the reality with information technology is it's exponential. So it's doubling every 2 years. And this is extending not only to information technology, but now biotech and so forth. So these realities are exponential. And that's something that we have to kind of deal with in terms of not only technology, but also I'm thinking ways of thinking. In that, what I mean by that is that if spiral dynamics has some legitimacy, then these levels, these stages of development are actually compounding. We're using the tools of one stage of development and increasing it on the next. So the time frame for each stage of development is lessening. So new stages are emerging quicker and quicker. And there's this notion with Kurzweil, for example, that there's going to be a technological singularity, but you can't really have a technological singularity without an intuitive or thought-related singularity at the same time. So they have to kind of converge, it seems. I noted this idea of, saintly order being sort of next. And what I mean by that really is an interbeing. So if there is something like a singularity that does take place, then it seems like we will be enmeshed together in some sort of mind system to some degree. And for it to be working, there has to be a degree of communion that is quite profound. And what I mean by that is we actually kind of perhaps will share a body. In many religious traditions, this is commonly phrased, and I think that this is very intuitively pushing into that domain, and that, we will share the kind of body of Christ. We will be in Buddha. That is to say, we will be sharing our interbeing space. We will be together while being an individual in that mix somehow, I suspect, perhaps.